You're listening to episode number 48 of the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. Okay, this is a transformational story episode, and in this episode, I visit with a student of mine. Her name is Niduk, Niduk, and she's going to tell you that she, prior to working together, had an identity of illness. She was trapped in her money stories. She was not putting her business out because she thought she'd be judged for her name. Therefore, she was hiding behind her name. And her relationship was having some serious challenges. She went from all of that, as you will hear in this episode, from all of those challenges to a life of wellness, a life of prosperity. Her business is growing amazingly, and she's in a much better relationship. And I'm sure as you're listening, a lot of what she has to say and how she transformed her life will resonate with a lot of you. So it's a fascinating story. Keep listening. Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached super achievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you, because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so on today's Transformational Story podcast, I'm talking to Niduk, who is a student of mine, and she's been one now for how long, Niduk? Have you been with me in my programs?
I started with you in January of
Really?
this
It's
year.
that soon? Okay, I
Yeah.
thought it was longer than, okay. So, well, half a year, I guess, thereabouts,
Yeah.
a little longer. And you wanted to talk about, and what we want to share with people listening so that they can take away from you and your experience and they can start creating transformation in their own life. You want to talk about how you, and we'll get to what we can get to. You want to talk about how your health identity has shifted with your chronic endometriosis, big word, and how you're feeling better, how you've shifted your money mindset, how you've released your fear of judgment of other people, how your relationship has improved with your husband, and how even what you just mentioned, your business is growing. And you did an event yesterday and you had 20 people sign up with you, which you've never had before. So let's start there. Um, let's tell people your story about each one of these, and let's keep it short because of time. So
Sure.
let's start with identity about health. What does that mean, and where were you and where are you now?
Right. So I have endometriosis. I've had it since I was 15 years old. And for women, they would understand what this is. It's where your endometrial tissue grows outside of your uterus. And in my case, it was actually quite debilitating. And I have been in and out of hospitals with surgeries since I was 25. Sort of
Mm,
every couple of years, going in for surgery where they would go in and they would, clear out all the scar tissue growth. And as I and over the years, organ removal was never something that I actually wanted to consider because
mm,
I wanted to. I've always wanted to try and manage it.
sure.
And so part of the pain management of that was surgery or
Mm,
going through chemical menopause, which again I've been doing since I was 25. And so it's been really hard on my body.
yeah, sure.
And what's been really interesting for me, I realized, was that I have, since I was 15, carried the identity of being someone who is sick.
Mm.
And
What
so,
does that mean? Break that
yeah.
down.
Um, so the identity of being someone who's sick. So in my case, what happens when I have flare-ups in the past is I would just stay in bed because
Mm,
it was physically very difficult for me to get up and get going. I
yeah,
was on so many pain meds. I mean, Oxycontin or Percocet. I'm not sure what you guys call it in the States.
same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's just more
Yeah.
expensive here, from what I hear. I'm on neither, but I hear it's more expensive and pricier with our sky high health insurance rates. But keep on going. Okay.
So, so yeah, I mean, that was part of the cocktail that I was on,
Wow.
for pain management.
For how long? How long were you on that?
Oh my gosh, I've been on and off of it since I was 25.
Wow.
When they actually sort of really began to take my pain seriously, because what they hadn't realized was in my very first surgery, and that was when they actually realized how bad my pain was, is my appendix had been sort of closed off
Mm,
from where it was, and normally that's the precursor to your appendix rupturing.
okay.
And so they were like, "Oh my gosh, Niduk, how have you not come into the hospital before that?" Right? So that's just to give you a sense of like how much pain I was in constantly, but not also being able to even differentiate life-threatening pain, um, because
Wow.
because it was just every day. So
So
my
you
identity was,
wait. So what you're saying is that you were used to the pain.
yeah, it
Okay,
was my
because
everyday.
I know I don't know the breakdown of males to females listening. So a lot of guys are like, well, I don't have endometriosis, but
Mhm.
you know what? There are a lot of guys that have something else, and I've seen that a lot where people have actually learned to live with the pain, and their entire day is pain, and you don't even really know they're in pain because they've learned to live with it,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so
Yeah.
I want to go further there because this is a big deal. Where are you now with pain?
Right. So, um, I have to say, so living with pain,
Sure.
I was one of the reasons why they didn't take me seriously was because I was high functioning. I managed to find spaces of being high functioning, living with the pain.
Okay, come a little closer to your mic if you could, please.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Yeah.
So when being high functioning with it, I what I would do is I used to like have spurts of like really really intense activity in my business or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is that I was doing, and then I would crash because my body just couldn't take it and I would be out for a few days.
Okay.
But what happened when I started working with you, Jim, and it was incredible because you introduced us to the master thought formula,
Mm-hmm.
and I began shifting my identity from being someone who was someone who's sick.
Now, hang on. What would a person say in your case? What were you saying to yourself about that identity? What was your talk about being sick?
Oh, I can't do anything. I need to rest. I was, I like, I'm, it's one of the reasons why I have, like, it was also my reason for the dips in my business as well.
Okay.
And there was most definitely a correlation because when I, when I had my flare ups and my flare ups were pretty intense, and a flare up is pretty intense
Okay.
because I have chronic pain all the time. But the difference of how I was being, as
Okay.
you have helped us to identify, was being someone who was sick and it was all consuming. Like I could do nothing else other than be sick.
So you were a professional sick person,
Yes, it's
right?
crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, and, but it's interesting because again, a professional sick person, as you said, who still got through the day and got
Yeah.
quite a lot done. And so
Yeah.
it was hard for people to take me seriously when I would end up in ER. And I can't even
When you
tell
look fine though, right? And what's wrong with you? You look fine today, and you're doing this and you're doing that. What do you mean you're sick, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
right? But I was also popping so many pills.
Ah.
That's the
Okay.
other thing, right? Because that was
Mm,
part of the pain management.
yeah.
And so it was amazing because, you know, I began in January and I must have listened to Master Thought Formula 3 times a day.
Which I'll tell you guys what that is in a moment. Keep on going.
Okay, so I had it on my phone, I had it on my
Mm,
computer, and it was incredible because I remember sitting down and having a conversation with my husband about a month into working with you,
mm-hmm.
and we were talking about how I hadn't actually spent any time in bed the
Mm.
entire month of January.
You mean sick time in bed,
Sick time
right?
in bed,
Yeah.
right? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't under, like I wasn't with my laptop under the duvet. I was actually, I was, I had just shifted. I had started to move my attention away from it. It's not to say that my pain went away, but because I shifted my identity so much, I didn't allow it to also consume me the way that it could.
And it was doing prior.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And
But then
by the way,
I,
I don't know where you're going with this in a good way. So, like,
yeah,
everyone listening, I have no idea because we've not talked personally, even though she's in my program. I have no idea where she's going to go with this, and I'm curious about it. So let's keep on going. Okay, so you're out of
yeah,
bed, you're not under the duvet. This is 1 month in with me. And by the
yeah,
way, everyone listening, what she's doing is people hear me a lot of my programs say is we have to learn to move our attention because our attention is where we are. And that can even pertain to pain, which is the way that she used it. Okay, keep on going.
yeah. And so what ended up happening with me was I actually, in February, a month in, I started to stop taking my pain meds.
Now let's hang on here. So to cover my butt, I am not a
Yes, you're not a
doctor.
medical
I'm not a
practitioner.
medical practitioner. I never told you at any point, nod your head and say yes. I never
Yes,
told you to
absolutely. You
cut your
never
medicine
told me
back.
to stop taking my pain
We
meds.
never discussed it, not even wink, wink, 1%. We know
No,
we
never,
didn't discuss anything at all. Okay,
never,
but hang on. So,
never. You never told me to do that, Jim.
exactly.
I decided,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
decided that I actually did not need to take the pain meds with, okay, let me
Mm,
rephrase, with the frequency with which I was taking it.
yeah.
I didn't need to take it with the higher dosages that I was taking.
Yeah.
And so I began to sort of wean myself off, and it it was really interesting for me as, you know, wearing my entrepreneurial hat.
Hang on. Before you go on, I want to go there. Were you having side effects of the medication? Were you groggy or dizzy, or
Oh,
were
yeah.
okay? Like, what kind of
Yeah.
side effects were you having?
So you know when you wake up in the morning and you wake up with like a fog if
Yeah.
you've maybe had a heavy night, or
Yeah.
um you're still a little bit tired, like you could
Yeah.
probably snooze for a few more hours.
Right.
Oh, the best explanation for me is NyQuil. If you've ever taken NyQuil and you wake up in the morning, you're still a little bit like dozy.
Groggy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So you went through your
So
days like that, right?
yeah, and it
Okay. Wow.
so definitely not a morning person.
Yeah. I get it.
And so what was interesting was that I started actually, and I remember you saying this in one of the calls, you know, how you show up in the program in
Yeah.
TCP is how you show up in life.
Yeah.
And I was so committed to working with you. I was showing up in the program, but I began showing up in my business
Mm.
in a completely different way because I wasn't showing up being sick,
Let
being
me add
someone.
there.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Let
That
me
makes
add
sense.
there. Everyone listening, even though, see, I don't know where this interview is going to go because I don't know her end result. And even though she's working with me, she has the opportunity to speak up every week if she wants or ask questions, but she's not. So, and that's fine too. That's perfectly fine. I just didn't, I want everyone to know it's like you're not hidden in a crowd somewhere and I don't see you. I mean, I see you physically on every call, but you're not for some reason, and it's great. You're not, you're not obviously needing or wanting any coaching every week at this point because you're doing really well. So, okay, so I just want to tell you guys that because she's not like this sea of people and she's hidden in the back row. Okay, so I'm curious where this episode is going to go. So let's keep on going. So you're showing you're showing up at work and
Yeah. So I
okay.
started showing up in my business in a very different way. And I had started working, building online training programs, which is a new endeavor for me.
Mhm.
I traditionally, my last practice was a consulting practice.
Mhm.
We spent a lot of time working with NGOs. That was our principal, nonprofits
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
internationally. And so, you know, I began to be able to, once I realized I had sort of, And it was a little bit unconscious, my health identity shift, because I just started showing up in my business in
Mm.
different way. It wasn't conscious. The
It
the
happened over time is what
health
happened. It
shift.
happened
Yeah.
working with me. And I want to lead you a little here because there's a lot I want to cover with you. This is really good stuff. Um, okay, so let me lead you a couple of places here. So your identity was of being a sick person when we met. Okay,
Yeah.
let me recap for everyone, take this apart even further. Okay, your identity was being a sick person. What is your identity now relative to your health?
It's something of the past. Like I don't spend time in bed. I still have endometriosis, but it doesn't control me. It
Okay,
doesn't consume me. But I'm not a sick person.
okay, good. Let's stop. Okay.
I just happen to have endometriosis.
Okay, let's go a little further here because I want to coach you a little on that. Secondly,
Okay.
is how are you or what level are you with your pain medications?
I'm on nothing.
Okay, but how are you feeling physically?
Physically, I'm good. I'm
Uh,
good. I'm not 100% pain free, but
Yet.
yet, yeah, yet.
Okay.
But my where I'm at physically with my pain doesn't shift, um, doesn't change how I show up in other parts of my life
Okay, let's go
at
here
the
for a
moment.
second. Yep, I get it. And sorry, and for you listening, I'm not trying to rush her, but we have a lot to cover, and I want you to hear more of her story. And we only have so much time, or we'd be here till 4 o'clock today. So that's why I'm moving a little faster. What I want to insert here is that I taught you self-hypnosis, how to use the power of
Mm,
your mind to heal. I don't know to what degree you've been using it, but knowing you, you probably have, right?
yeah.
Okay,
So that that was okay. So between master thought formula
formula. Yep.
and the hypnosis and the meditation, they have been my go-tos. Again,
Okay.
3 times a day, and I still do it almost every day. So it is very much, you know, hand on stomach going, my uterus is healthy.
So you're
I
talking you're talking to your body also like Katie, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
I want
because
to go
it
ahead.
it for me, as I visualize it, my pain sort of disappearing, it it helps me to actually release the
Yes.
stress,
Yep.
and my pain does disappear.
Yeah, let me add there, and I'm so glad to hear that. So let me add there for a second for people listening, and you probably have heard me say this before, but the Stanford Institute of Mind Brain Research has discovered many years ago that the number one use, and you can call it power, let's just call it power of the mind, self-hypnosis, whatever you want to call it. The number one use of that power of the mind, which I've taught you, is pain physically, is pain alleviation or elimination.
Mm.
So what I'm telling you is I noticed something here, a little coaching for you here. When we first started, within 1 minute, you said, and I was listening to you very carefully, like I do when I coach, coach you and coach people. You said, I have chronic endometriosis. A different way, and when I heard that, I made a note and I circled it, and you can see right here where I circled the word have on this piece of paper.
Yeah.
What you didn't say is I had chronic endometriosis, which
Right.
tells me at some small level, you're still hanging on to the identity, even though you've eradicated the symptoms of that identity. So, where I would share with you
Right.
next is to go from not having and managing and being fine with it, but going from it doesn't exist in your
Yes.
body anymore. Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Absolutely.
So for
Absolutely.
you in your workshop of the mind, which for those of you listening, it's a process I've taught people in my programs, where you go is in the third video screen of the workshop of the mind.
Hmm.
You're going to look at your life and you're going to say, you're going to imagine you're in a conversation and you're going to say, you know what? Yes, I used to have that also, and I no longer do. I am 100% healthy. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and going from the
Yeah.
identity of being well, like you said earlier, let's shift it instead of 99%. Let's shift it 100%. You got that, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
100%.
Okay, excuse me.
I love
Okay.
this. I'm getting coaching here too.
Well, I'm seeing this, and I'm like, let's take you all the way because, as you know, and Katie's demonstrated, as you know, we can heal our bodies. I
Mm.
mean, we can with our mind. Our mind is the number one pharmacy in the world. Yet, what most of us do is we give our body over to pharmacology, Excuse me, I'm going to cough here for a second. I'm going to put us on mute. Okay, I am back. And we did not edit that. So, what most of us do is we give our bodies to Western medicine and pharmacology, which for many people, and this is a defensible statement. If you look at people taking pharmaceuticals, I once heard someone say there are no safe drugs because every drug you take to heal something breaks down something else in
100%.
the body, right?
Absolutely. And the medication I was on was, the side effects
Mm-hmm.
were liver damage,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
on a very serious level that I had to go get blood work every month. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This is crazy.
Exactly. And I even see people, I saw this ad recently for eyelashes, and you take a pharmaceutical, and I'm like, why would you destroy your liver to grow eyelashes? But anyway, somebody might be doing that and they're yelling at me and throwing their what I don't know. But here's where I want to go. Okay, I've noticed in you, so where we go to with you and everyone listening, if we never talked about what I'm talking about now, you still have a phenomenal story. And what's possible for you is possible for anyone else, providing they know how to use. And she's actually like, oh my God, yes, it is. I'm watching
Yes.
her face. Providing, like, and Katie and other people, providing they know how to use the power of their mind. Because I didn't have like this magic wand in the coaching program and go, Niduk, here I come, Shazam, boom, and this bolt of lightning, and you're like, I'm healed. That never happened. You did
Absolutely.
this.
It never happened.
It
I
never,
can attest to that. But it kind of feels like it did.
but you did it. You're the
Yeah.
wizard. You did the work
Yeah.
using your unconscious mind.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go here. We've spent a lot of time, and that's great. This is awesome. But you talked about a lot of things, and I want to make sure we can cover some other things because a lot of people are dealing with health. We've covered that, and their takeaway is you can heal. No matter what you have, you can
Mhm.
heal. I haven't read the book, but I've heard about it, and it's been endorsed by some people I really trust. And I think the book's called Dying to Be Me, about this woman whose body was just covered in tumors, and she was very, very sick. And she healed herself by completely shifting her emotional states and moving her attention. Now, I don't know if she moved her attention per se in the way I teach it because I haven't read the book.
Yeah.
And I want to point out for everyone listening because they know it, it's a thread, it's a common theme in the podcast. I learned all this power of the mind stuff through science and with the shaman, my brother in law, about
Mhm.
how we heal ourselves and how we heal and how we create from the inside out.
Yeah.
Now, creating money. Let's talk about that
Creating
because
money.
people are like, I want to know
Oh
about
my
money.
gosh.
Let's talk about it.
So, it's crazy. So because I've for the last 17, 18 years now, I've been working with nonprofits and charities.
Hmm.
Um, I realized
Where
when
people don't get rich running them or
it's
whatever, right?
right.
Okay.
So, and I didn't even realize that I had a money scarcity issue.
Yeah.
Maybe people around me realized I did, but I
Right.
myself, I didn't realize that it was actually a really big block in my head, money.
No, hang on. Let's take that apart. When you said I didn't realize I had a money scarcity issue, break that down into real life scenario for you.
Okay. Um, so
What couldn't you do?
so I could never charge what I was worth.
Okay.
I always charged what I thought people could afford or what they told me they wanted to pay.
Okay. Got it.
Right.
So you're letting the market drive your value.
Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
And while I understood that people didn't do that, I also gave meaning to the fact that I couldn't charge what I felt I was worth.
Now, hang on. So were you saying, okay, let me back up two steps here. Number one is whatever we value ourselves as on our business or ourselves, we take, let's say, for example, let's use some numbers. Let's say that I put something out there and I could really, the market would bear 100 or more than that, but I say, okay, my value is $10. So then the market says, okay, some part of the market will say, okay, we will pay you $10. Now you use that to verify, see, I'm only worth
Yes.
$10. Okay, good.
Yes.
So you get
Absolutely.
that and people get that.
Absolutely. I'll tell you really quickly a fantastic story actually. So I had a client that um, I sent through my invoice. We had sort of agreed a budget of around $20,000. And so at the end of the at the end of the consultation,
Wait. You sort of agreed or you agreed?
no, we agreed. Okay, so
Okay, got
no,
it.
like
Okay,
we agreed that the budget was going to be $20,000.
got it. Okay.
And then what ended up happening was I sent through the invoice. We did this amazing project together. And the client came back to me and goes, "Oh, I only have $15,000. Do you think we could reduce your invoice to 15?" And I did not even hesitate in saying,
Wait. The old you would have said what?
well, the old me basically was like immediately, "Oh, sure, no problem." And it didn't even phase me. And it wasn't until we were going through, the week on money and sort of our identity around money, because we spent a lot of time talking about it in the groups. I was looking back at the story and just sort of face palming myself, going, "Oh my gosh, Niduk, you literally let money, like I was repelling it rather than
Yep.
living in the abundance that I know that it does exist, because I attached a meaning that my clients can't afford to work with me unless I let them dictate what I'm worth."
Let me go there for a second. So I had somebody tell me recently, I did a podcast interview that I was on their podcast, and they said, "Jim, you should be charging $100,000 for one-to-one coaching," because of some of the people that I've coached. I mean, they're 8 and 9-figure earners.
Mm.
And when I told him I was only charging $2,000 an hour to coach, which a lot of people listening are going, "Are you kidding me? $2,000 an hour? Are you crazy?" And other people are like, "Oh, not a big deal." But I've been there where we place these values on ourselves. And I'm going to share with you, which you've already learned, and everyone listening. For the most part, the more money you charge, the easier your clients are to work with, because they already know what to expect. They can afford you. They work at that level. And when people try to discount you down, or they want you at the cheapest possible price, if you could see her facial expressions,
Yeah.
she gets it. They're the hardest people to work with. So where I work from, and I think you're there, and we're going to talk about this. Where I work from is, here's the investment to work with me one-to-one. It's not group. Groups I think, very affordable, and I do that for a reason. But the one-to-one is at least $25,000 for just 12 calls with me. And if somebody wants to do it, that's great. And I'm going to qualify because I want the right people to work with. And if they don't, it's fine. You know what? There's someone else that can work with you. But years ago, I used to be like, well, okay, yeah, I can reduce it to, and back then it's a lot less. Yeah, I can reduce it to this or that. And I was
Yes.
reducing my own value and my own worth in me when I did that. Now, let's go to you. When you say, no, I can't reduce it, how do you feel about that?
And okay, so this leads into my fear of judgment,
Yeah.
because I used to want to please everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And I was scared. I used to be scared of creating, I'll say conflict. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but I was afraid that if I said no,
they wouldn't like you, is what you were afraid of.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And that they were going to begin to judge me.
Yep.
And I didn't realize that those two were even connected.
Yeah.
Until I started working with you. And I remember, Jim, so I was actually on a hot seat with you very early on in January.
I remember.
And in
like
that
the second week or so. Yeah, very quick.
Yeah. And in that hot seat, I actually, so when I was starting my online business, I did a bunch of ICA calls, or avatar calls, to get to know who my ideal client was. And some of the feedback that I was getting from these people that I were calling were around my name. And I created this.
I remember this call. Hang on, before you go there, wasn't you created this crazy scenario in your mind that because people were going to judge you because of your name,
Yes.
So you weren't going to put yourself out there because people would think less of you because you had this name.
Yes.
And so you weren't going to put yourself out there. I remember that call. Yep.
Yes. And it was crazy because you actually walked me through going, well, what do you really want to do? Do you actually want to help?
Yeah.
Or do you want to just, like not do anything at all?
And hide behind your name and people that are going to,
yes,
which
right?
By the way, what percentage of people anyway are in this world we live in today are going to think anything about your name? right? I mean, we live in a
Exactly.
global economy, despite what the nationalism going on in the US right now. We live in a global world.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
keep
it
on
was
going.
and so it was crazy. Like I realize how crazy it is,
Yeah.
and how I allowed the voices of a few people who struggled with my name, um, how I allowed that to dictate almost 2 years of me not moving forward in this online business training program.
And by the way,
Like,
that's wait, hang on. By the way, so Jason also his interview is going live, and you know
okay,
Jason because he's in
of
the program
course.
as well. And you know that he let somebody tell his wife he didn't deserve his Olympic medal, and that kept him down from helping people for 10 years. So you let these people, and I want to take this to you, you
Hmm.
let these people who were not paying your visa bill and were not paying your rent influence you hiding in your apartment or wherever you lived
Yes.
and allowing you to not go out, or they were affecting you in a way so you weren't going out and you weren't helping more people in the world with your skills because you were hiding behind the opinions of maybe 10 people.
100%.
Okay,
A
just so we're
hundred
clear.
percent. A hundred
Yeah.
percent. That's exactly what I realized I did when I got on the call with you, because I created all these stories, and it wasn't even the name that, like I had blown it up into all kinds of reasons why I couldn't move forward.
Give us one. I remember that. By the way, when she said hot seat, when I do group coaching, people are obviously every call is a coaching call. There's homework prior, and then I take live like Niduk, and we
Yeah.
start talking. And I remember that call. What was one of the things you were saying to yourself about your name that they might say to you that you were making up in your mind?
Oh, that so if they ever received an email from me, they wouldn't open it because it sounded foreign. So,
Okay.
um, or they would troll me. They would
Okay.
find me online and troll me. And I do know, I have dealt with trolls. So I know that they're there, but I know that I don't need to engage with that. And that's what I learned, is that I don't need to engage with it. I just need to put myself out there, because there's so many more people that actually benefit from
Yeah.
learning from me. And I have more evidence of that than I do of people who sort of push back.
And let me add there, and I might have already said this in another podcast. I got one of my students from Australia 2 weeks ago, and I'd forgotten about it till right now. She said, there is somebody in Australia warning people about you. She says that you have a criminal record and you have changed your name. I'm like, okay, I've heard a lot of
What?
stuff. What are you talking about? And she goes, she's warning people all over Australia about you, but don't worry, she's done that to other people before.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Real? And anybody, any of us can get online and you can Google anybody's name and you can find a history or much, and I was like, oh my God. And many years ago, I'd have been like, oh no, that's not true. And I hope that nobody hears that because I don't want to affect people because I want to help people. This day and age, I'm like, I thought about it for like 10 minutes and I'm like, done. All right,
Just let
move
it
on.
go.
Let it go. Exactly. I
Let it
mean,
go,
why would
right?
I even engage with that troll wanting this obviously person that's not playing with a full deck or whatever, or maybe has some kind of chemical. I don't know. I'm going to leave that alone and leave that behind.
Yeah.
But I want everyone to everyone to hear us talking that Niduk was paralyzed. And I remember that call, not putting yourself out in the world. And you're putting yourself out. And what happened yesterday?
Oh my gosh. So I so yesterday I actually did a live event, and at the conclusion of the live event, I signed up 20 new customers.
That are going to pay you money
Yeah.
that you would have hid from last December.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I would never have done it last December, let alone, or I would have done it. I just would never have also made an offer to them to come and actually
Yeah.
work with me, because I was so wrapped up in my fear of, like, oh, well, what if I'm not good enough, or and I, like, creating all these crazy stories.
And
And
my
it's
name. What about let's
yes.
let's talk
Oh
about
my
let's talk about
gosh.
crazy names. I'm going to
But
say a crazy name to you. You ready?
okay.
Oprah. I mean, what if Oprah Winfrey never, she's like, my name sounds like okra. I can't put myself out there because my name is Oprah. I mean, come on here. All right. So
I
you,
know it's so crazy. But this is the thing that I also realized, Jim, is, when I looked at, and we spent a lot of time also talking about alignment
yeah,
with what we're doing. And
yeah.
so what I actually realized was that I have, like, my alignment in my business also speaks to people who have names like me, who
Hmm.
are also people of color, who want to continue to see, you know, and hear from people who are immigrants, who are successful entrepreneurs, who have lived with, chronic illness, who are women. And so it was interesting because I realized that, for me, when we talk about alignment and niches and
Yeah.
and all of that in our own businesses and in our lives, I realized that one of the reasons why I was also paralyzed was because I wasn't seeing enough people that looked like me, that sounded like me, that had
Hmm.
similar stories as stories. And
Yeah.
I mean, the stories we tell ourselves, oh my gosh,
Jason went
right?
there because we do a whole week of stories in TCP, my program. And so obviously that busted your life open in a good way, and Jason's and Katie's and,
Yes.
other people that I have interviewed, or like Marcus, and I will interview. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And your podcast, I think it was the third or fourth podcast you did on stories.
Yep, I did.
Yeah,
Yep.
and because when I sent out your podcast to everybody, and it was
With funny
incredible.
names, right? According to
Oh,
Americans.
right.
Yeah,
But it was
okay.
it, it was amazing because everyone that I sent it to, they actually got to episode 3 and they were sort of hanging there because they couldn't quite get over how many stories they were telling
Yeah.
themselves, right?
Yeah, let's go back here to the very
Really
beginning of our
powerful.
time together. Okay, number one, you've told us a story now for 41 minutes. Okay,
Hmm.
so and everyone listening, notice she's
Powerful
told us this
story.
very, I love that. Years ago, she would have been like curled down below the duvet going, well, I think it was an okay story. I don't know. You guys approve of me? Was my story okay? And now she's like, that's a powerful story. And I love that. And yes, everything. Let me share here. One of my transformational coaches once said to me many years ago, I wanted to create something, and my coach said, "That's easy." And he started laughing at me, and I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Change your story." And I'm like,
Oh,
"What?"
yes.
And her body language, watching you now. Hang on. So he's like, "It's all a story," and he goes, "Who says you can't have XYZ yet?" It was a piece of real estate I wanted to buy cash, and it was over $1 million. This is many years ago. And I said, well, I don't have the cash yet and I don't want to do a mortgage. And he goes, it's just a story. Now I'm buying, nice properties, as you know,
Pretty
in
place in
Sedona.
Sedona.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? It's all stories. It's all stories.
Yeah.
And even your story, let's recap here, then I want to go one more place with you. Your story about your health and how you felt was dependent upon your story. Your money, asking people yesterday, was all a story, putting yourself out there. The stories that you used to have about your name and that you now have about your name. And I don't even know if you have, but you've recognized that your name actually, a new story is your name is a benefit to what you do for the people that you work with.
Okay, yes, 100%. And this is the thing. So I actually want to say, so
Sure.
my parents are originally from Sri Lanka,
Okay.
and my name, Niduk, is actually a Buddhist name. And it's a beautiful name
Yeah.
in Buddhism because it actually stands for happiness. And in
Mm.
Buddhism and Sanskrit, the way that they say it, it's like ni dukkha. So ni is a no,
Oh,
and
okay.
no sadness. Dukkha is sadness.
Mm.
So you always wish upon someone, health, wealth, and happiness. And so my name is happiness, right? But I couldn't even embrace that, which
Wow.
I now do, which is crazy. It's so crazy when I actually think about the nonsense in my head sometimes, right?
Well,
And then
all
just
of
letting
us.
it go, and then
Well, you
just letting it go.
you could change your name to Frederica Mercury, from that because Freddie Mercury just changed
Mercury,
his
yeah.
name. Exactly. But let me add there, I've never told the story very, very quick, and we're going to keep going with you, is I don't anymore. But many years ago, I used to think, God, I've got like the most boring name in the world. I mean, Jim, come on. I mean, why couldn't I have like a really cool name like, I don't know, Carter or Blaine or Blair? You know, why did I get stuck with a 1960s name? I mean, might as well just call me Bob, you
Yeah.
know? Sorry,
Yeah.
Bob, if there are any Bobs listening. But I'm like, and literally years ago, it's like, I got a boring name. Now it's like, who cares? I don't even think about it, but I want to go somewhere else here.
It's
Okay.
so true. And just for your listeners, Jim,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, for because a lot of South Asians, Southeast Asians that I know do tend to have an Americanized name
Yeah. Yep.
as well, right? Because there's a perception that it's easier. And so
Yep.
rather than entertain that. So, I mean, embrace the name is my new story. Like embrace who you are. There's
This
no
is some,
reason to
yeah.
hide it.
This is something that I'm probably going to do an episode on. And James Wedmore, one time, we're good friends, and we were talking,
Mhm.
and he goes, "My wife and I were looking for a new piece of art for the living room." And you hear me talk about my brother-in-law a lot in the programs, but
Yeah.
not about him, but about teachings from him to you guys.
Yeah.
And I own them, but I share them with you guys also. And one of the most powerful things he ever said to me, I remember exactly where I was, and I don't have time for this story now, but he said, "Just be." And James and his wife wanted to turn that into art. And when you think about just be whoever or whatever you are, and just be that as well as you can, everything's going to be fine. We're
Yes.
always trying to not be who we are. We're trying to be. I saw really quick here. I got to be very careful so I don't mention a name. I was at this really big speakers event a lot of years ago, and I took my NLP trainer, who's a little seasoned in age right now, and she's about 80. But she literally has coached American presidents when they were in office, and we've been friends for a lot of years. She was my NLP trainer, and she said to me about the speaker who's very very big, now
Mhm.
very very big name today.
Right.
She said he is so busy trying to be a so and so another speaker that he is a second rate speaker because he's not being himself. And if you just be you and who you are, guess what? People somewhere in the world and some socioeconomic, some demographic, people are going to resonate with you. So why not just be you?
And I will add to that last night at my live event, the greatest compliment I
Mm.
received was how authentic I was.
Mm. Even with your name, right?
Right. Amazing. Amazing.
And for
Right.
those of you that are only listening, I'm watching her smile, and her body language tells me that she's not just up here jabbering. I mean, she's owned this at a core level, and she is this person who is showing up in the world. Okay, a few more minutes, but one place I want to go. We've only got about 5, 6 minutes left, maybe a little longer. But not but. Let's say and not but. And how has your relationship changed with your husband?
Oh my gosh, it's been amazing. I, you know, one of the the beautiful thing about your podcast, Jim, is that now I can share you with him,
Okay.
and you're not this like Jim character. Like, who's Jim?
I'm not some cult leader, which I've been called also, and all this. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
And so, what it's allowed us to do is to be able to grow together because
Mm,
I have been changing. And, it's always a scary thing, I think, in relationships. I was married previously, and, and,
sure.
and in my last marriage, we didn't grow in the same direction.
Hang
And
on.
so,
Let me add there what I tell people, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, and it's in one of my programs that you guys get as an addendum to what we're doing. Is a relationship is only as strong as the identities in the relationship, and the more dissimilar the identities are, the weaker the relationship is. So what happens a lot of times, which has happened to you, and we see a lot in my programs, is one person will grow and the other person is either forced to also grow, or the relationship many times will split, or something's going to happen. So what happened is early on with you, I'm guessing, is you started growing and he wasn't. And your relationship didn't get stronger until he also started growing and started identifying as a person who grows. Is that fair?
yeah, absolutely. And it was so, there's the podcast you did with James Wedmore.
Yeah.
that those podcasts. And I remember when I actually first came across you, Jim, it was actually in September of last year. So it's about a year ago.
Okay.
So while I started coaching with you in January, I actually tell people you've been in my life since September
Okay. Thank
because
you.
I listened to those episodes you did with
James.
James Wedmore, and actually my husband was listening to them as well. And what it allowed us to do was to begin to have conversations
Yeah.
about our stories together.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're not always comfortable conversations, right?
I've been there. They're not. Well, hang on.
But
Hang on.
it's a
Wait. Hang on. I've been there, and there. You just said they're not always comfortable conversations because of. Let's go here. A little coaching is what interpretations and identity do you have about the story and what's going to happen as a result of it?
this is just it, right? Because you know, in those before I started with you in January,
Yeah.
when we would have those conversations, I didn't have the toolkits
Okay.
to work through, realize that what I was saying was a story, or that what he was
Got it.
saying
Was
was
a
a
story.
story, right?
And his interpretation, which affected the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so so it was interesting because I realized that I can now also be vulnerable
Mm.
in a way that I wasn't able to be vulnerable before.
Now, hang on. I don't know. I don't know. Were you defensive or would you not
Oh,
speak up? Oh, okay.
and but I would also just bottle. Like
Yeah.
because I think I'm also internally referenced.
Okay.
And so and so whenever he would say something to me that I didn't like, I clam up. Like
You,
I don't
you take
I
it
like
and you pull it in and you bottle and then you sieve.
I don't even see, like, yes, I do for a little bit, but I don't show it externally.
Right. Yeah. You bottle it up.
Yeah. And so
And then what happens
but
generally is
nothing
communication shuts down.
absolutely.
Okay. Keep on
And
going.
so and so this is something that in the second round of TCP with you, I've actually been working on for me myself, is to learn how to deal and manage with that, right? And not to
Mm.
create stories about those feelings, but to recognize, oh my gosh, okay, I'm being triggered. Why am I being triggered, right? And how do I
And what am I judging that I'm being triggered? What judgments am I making about him? What judgments am I making about me?
100%.
Right?
A
Yeah.
100%. And so it's been amazing. Like I told him last night when I mentioned that we were going to be talking today, I said, I would love for you one day to actually consider joining TCP because it, I mean, and he's already seen the transformation in me.
Now, hang on. She said TCP, which is my I can't talk,
Yes.
transformational coaching program. Just want to be clear, not PCP, which is the psychedelic drug. Isn't it? I just want to be clear there. Okay.
Yes, I
So
said TCP.
TCP. Okay. Keep on going.
I would love for him to eventually consider joining it if he
Yeah.
continues to feel that it's an appropriate fit for him.
Sure.
Because I know he loves your podcast as well.
Mm.
And so I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be coached by you. And I just want to, before I go any further, or we conclude, I just want to say it was interesting. One of the reasons why I didn't sign up in September
Mm-hmm.
and I waited until January, because I realized I had a story about what coaching is.
Mm.
I've always invested in professional development.
Yeah, sure.
Very,
Sure.
very happy to do that. But coaching to me was, you do that if you are struggling or if you need help. And I didn't believe that I needed, help. I'm using air quotes at the moment.
Yeah.
But
Well, you said that earlier when you started. You said I didn't even recognize that I was something another, right? Okay,
yeah.
got it.
And
Yeah.
so, and it's crazy because, I know, like, my cousin, who's actually in your program as well, started in May. Her husband works with a basketball team, and it got me thinking about, wow, okay, here are high performance athletes, or just athletes in general, who work with coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Artists work with professionals that help guide them and coach them to do better art, right?
Yeah.
I feel like in this sort of service world of professional services, if you get a coach, it's like, well, something's wrong in your personal life, right?
So
That's
you
why
had a
you need.
story about that,
It's
right?
a
Yeah.
story. It's a crazy story, right?
Yeah.
When actually it's about improving and evolving yourself as not just a human, but as a professional or as a partner in a relationship. And I think everyone should have coaches.
I like that, and I've never liked the word coach. It just doesn't really fit for me. But then what do I call myself? And it just dawned on me is I don't feel like a coach. What I feel like is a guide. Is
Yes.
yeah, let me just guide you. Let me just show you. I've already been down these roads. I've had some world class with my brother-in-law, beyond world class mentorship with NLP and shamanism and being a master hypnotist and all these things. I've always had people that are top of their field coaching me, training me, influencing me, mentoring me. But I feel more like in TCP and even on the podcast, I feel like, I tell people, you hear me say all the time, I'm learning my lessons. I'm on this planet. I am not special. I am not different, so to speak. Whatever you're learning, I'm learning something else, but just something different with, working with a shaman. We're all here to learn our lessons. And if I can guide you guys to let go of this crap about fear of judgment, these,
Yes.
these stupid things that we get into. I'm calling no one stupid, but I've been there. These
No.
stupid things that we get into that hold us back, then let me guide. Just, let me shine the flashlight. Let me lead the path and just follow.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's where we're going to go. One more thing.
Okay.
Number one, amazing time with you. And I know a lot of people could actually see themselves in you. And I know you helped a lot of people today. And you don't know what question I'm going to ask, but here's the question. It's a very simple question. One sentence or one thought or one takeaway or one tool, what is the number one thing you want to leave with the audience?
Stop talking to yourself.
I love that.
Because every time every time you talk to yourself, if you really observe what that conversation is in your head, you will discover that probably the conversations aren't nice to you. You aren't being nice to yourself.
Or you're being
And
counterproductive. I'm
or
sick.
you're
I'm
being
sick.
counterproductive.
I can't make
Yeah.
enough
I can't
money.
go to the gym. I'm
Yep.
not worth this. This person's not going to like me if I tell them how I really feel.
My name
Like,
is Niduk, and it's just people
exactly,
are gonna
right?
judge my name. Okay,
And
keep
I
on
think
going.
as soon as you stop talking to yourself, you are able to just let go of everything and just be the person you were meant to be. That person comes out because you're not trying to be anyone else by having different conversations in your head, right?
Okay, I love this, and let me add here, guys. People listening, is that Sona Duck is on her second round of the program, and she knows that the very first week, what I start telling people, because of all this chatter, we have a Facebook live group. We do our calls on Zoom. All this chatter in the room, and I'm not good enough, and people are going to judge all the blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
The first thing I say the very first week is stop talking, stop thinking, stop talking, get quiet. And here on the podcast, I think it's episode number 6, I talk about living your highest potential. And you just nailed it in your own words, is we live our highest potential as beings when we stop talking to ourselves and we silence the
Yes.
mind. Because when we silence the mind, now we have peace of mind. When we have peace of mind, we get clarity. When we get clarity, we can act and we can be and we can do and we can attract. But when we don't have the peace of mind, then it's hard to do anything. And out in the world, people will actually, so many motivational speakers and gurus and all this will say things like, live your highest potential, but they're tying it to real estate or cars or jets or homes or money. And those are all external things. You are a cosmic being. And if you want to live your highest potential, learn to manage the being that you are and shut the mind down, because then all of these sixth sense and higher wisdom comes through you, and now you can act. Now I said it in my way, and you said it in your way, and thank you. I didn't know what you were going to say, but thank you, because if they didn't hear it my way, maybe they hear it your way. That it's released you from living a life of being a sick person, and then having the money scarcity, and then afraid to charge people, and the fear of judgment, and the bottling things with your husband. it all comes down to, you know what? Master thought formula, which you started with, is move your attention, stop thinking, get quiet in the mind. I am so grateful for your time today. Thank you so, so much for sharing your story.
You are most welcome, and thank you for being the guide that I've always been seeking.
I just was gonna. I'm never at a loss for words, but thank you. That means a lot to me because this is what I do. As you know, you've heard me say this is my dharma. This is what I do. This life. And I get a lot of people thanking me and sending text and messages on Instagram and Facebook messages and long messages to my support team. They send them to me. And people are like, thank you. And I'm like, no, no, thank you, because you guys are allowing me to live like an absolutely amazing life through the ability to serve people. And that's what I'm here for. So as I always say,
I'm
in
tearing
Lakesh,
up, Jim.
I know I with people that I work with, and I want to cut off because I don't want to tear up, but you hear me say all the time, in Lakesh, I'm another you. Okay, Niduk, thank you so much. A big hug, and I'll talk to you later. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, I want to add here that after you just listened to Niduk's story, what was obvious to you, and you've heard this from other episodes with Katie and Jennifer a while back and Jason, is that once we change our stories, everything is about stories, and stories come from our identity. So once we shift our identity, our stories change, and when our stories change, our external world changes. So hopefully you're hearing this theme over and over and over again with the transformational stories, and you're starting to recognize that when you change your stories and you shift your identity, everything else changes for you. On that note, also, I don't know when you're going to be listening to this episode. I mean, it can be tomorrow, it can be today, it can be a year from now. I don't know. But as you do know, and I'm sure there's a commercial here in the middle of this episode, and it's in the show notes on my website, that we do have an upcoming training on September the 4th. It's a 3-part live training where we dig even deeper with ways of being an identity. We look at your brain-based habits, and then obviously the third training will be, well, obvious to me, not to you yet, but the third training will be about ways and characteristics and ways you have to be to create the outcomes that you want in life. So whatever you do, get registered in the show notes over at jimfortin.com. Get registered for that live training. Okay, next episode is, I've already done an episode, I think it's number 17, on the power of dreaming and how to use dreaming to transform your life. And what I want to do is I want to create a tweak. I want to give you a tool, a very specific approach, which I didn't give you in that episode, the first one, number 17. I want to expand a little bit on that one and give you an approach and a way, a mindset way, a way to use your intention to actually, use Dreamtime to help it work for you a lot quicker and a lot more deeply. So make sure that you actually listen to that episode. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you over on the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family. If you found value, they will too. So please share via your social media channels. Also, if you have questions, I'm here to assist. You can email me questions to support@jimfortin.com, and I may even use your question for a future podcast episode. Also, if you want transformational content like this daily, connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is I am Jim Fortin. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that we're all here to help others and to grow and evolve ourselves. Together, you and I, let's help more people. If you would please leave a review on iTunes, and a good one, by the way. I'd be grateful, and through your assistance together, we can transform more lives. Thanks for listening.